Man,
We have a quorum. Oh,
Doesn't matter that we can't see Steve, I guess.
yes, we can.
There he is.
I just got something.
All right, it is now 6 o'clock, so we will begin the March 10th, 2022 Conyers Rockdale Planning Commission meeting. Item on the agenda would be invocation. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for your amazing power and work in our lives. Thank you for the goodness and for your blessings over us. Thank you that you're able to bring hope through even the toughest of times, strengthening us for your purposes. Thank you for your great love and care. Thank you for your mercy and grace. Thank you that you're always with us and will never leave us. Thank you for your incredible sacrifice so that we might have freedom and life. In your name we pray, amen. Next item would be the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next item is determination of a quorum. When I call your name, if you would signify by saying aye. Tamikia?
Aye.
Okay. Tom?
Aye.
Steve? Steven? I know he's here. Maybe is he on mute?
Amen.
Was that you, Stephen? Yep. Okay. All right. Wendelin? You on mute too? Okay, Wendelin,
Yes, I.
okay, okay,
Sorry, I was on mute.
okay. Ernestine?
Aye.
And Leslie?
Aye.
All right, right. We have a full crew here tonight. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there any motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Move to approve.
Second.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, next item, approval of the minutes from the February 10th, 2022 meeting. Somehow I didn't receive a copy, didn't get a copy, didn't find a copy, so but perhaps others have, and you wanted to vote on that.
I didn't get it either.
I didn't receive one.
Didn't get it.
Okay, then we have a motion to defer.
I move we defer the approval of those minutes to the next meeting.
Motion to defer. Second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed. Okay. Next item would be the rules or procedures for public hearings.
Each speaker must have registered with Planning and Development at least 24 hours prior to the start of this meeting. Each item of business shall be handled in the order that it appears on the agenda, unless upon motion of the Planning Commission, the order is changed. A member of the city or county planning staff will present each item to the Conyers Rockdale Planning Commission and will further provide a recommendation upon each item of business. The zoning applicant or the agent will state their name and address and will have 10 minutes in which to make his or her presentation. Any portion of their 10 minutes may be reserved for rebuttal following the opposition to the application. After the applicant's presentation, all registered speakers who wish to speak in favor of the application will then be heard. Prior to speaking upon the item, each registered speaker will state their name and address. They will also be limited to a total of 10 minutes. Once the applicant has made his or her presentation and the speakers in favor of the application have been heard, the secretary will then call upon the registered speakers in opposition to the application. The opposition shall likewise be limited to a total of 10 minutes. Once the public hearing portion is closed, no other speakers will be heard. As a reminder, speakers are to address the Planning Commission, not the applicant or the audience, and are expected to conduct themselves in an appropriate manner. The use of abusive or profane language shall not be allowed. No debate or argument between speakers shall be permitted. After all public comments have been heard, the Planning Commission may elect to hold general discussion. The Planning Commission will vote upon a recommendation that will continue forward to the City of Conyers City Council or the Rockdale County Board of Commissioners public hearing.
Thank you. Next item, old business, none, new business, City of Conyers, item C1, case number 3, 2022. Ordinance 1283, an ordinance to amend Chapter 7 of Title 8 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Conyers, Georgia, so as to amend Section 8792 supplemental use standards by providing supplemental use standards for tractor trailer parking areas. The purpose is to establish supplemental standards for tractor trailer parking areas. Applicant is City of Conyers. Mr. Gaither. And you're on mute. Oh, there
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Yes, sir. So this item is a text amendment to section 87-92 and 87-90. 87-92 is supplemental standards for the City of Conyers. And the request is a text amendment to create a supplemental standard for the use identified in section 8790 as tractor trailer parking areas. City of Conyers has tractor trailer parking areas as a permitted use only after a special use permit is issued in the ID zoning district. That's the industrial distribution district. However, we do not have any supplemental standards for that use. So this text amendment would be to create those supplemental standards. A tractor trailer parking area is identified as stated in the ID district, but we would look at identifying or defining tractor trailer parking area as areas designated and designed for the parking of vehicles for which a commercial driver's license is required to operate and where a fee, contract, or membership is required for entry. So this would basically be a parking lot that would have to be created to specific standards that someone who is a owner operator of a truck, or maybe they work for another organization that they drive a truck and need to park it for overnight or maybe a few days at a location while they go home. So it gets the trucks out of the residential areas. This is very similar to a tractor trailer parking area ordinance that that Rockdale County adopted or is in the process of adopting. So basically what we see is that throughout Metro Atlanta area, the growth of the trucking industry and distribution industry is, I wouldn't say unbridled, but is a high growth industry at this moment. The proposed supplemental standards are intended to set a standard for these types of establishments and to fulfill the purpose of zoning, to promote the public health, safety, morals, aesthetics, and general welfare of the residents, property owners, and businesses of the city. I did send out a full list of what those standards would be. I'm happy to go over them briefly with you tonight. But in order to establish a tractor trailer parking area, again, it does require a special use permit, but those minimum standards that we're asking you tonight to consider would be that the location shall contain a minimum of 5 acres, shall provide the following vegetative buffers: a 100-foot buffer from abutting property zoned anything other than industrial distribution or Rockdale County limited industrial, a 25-foot wide buffer when abutting property zoned industrial distribution or Rockdale County limited industrial, and a 25-foot wide when adjacent to all public right-of-way. That no parking area shall be closer than 100 feet to the nearest residence. That all parking areas shall be screened on all sides by an opaque solid wood fence or masonry wall at least 8 feet in height from the finished grade of the parking surface. The screen wall or fence shall be no closer than 25 feet from the public right-of-way. The structural supports of the screen fence or wall shall face the interior of the property. The external side of the screen fence or wall shall be supplemented with landscaping consistent of trees, shrubbery, or a combination thereof. The required vegetative buffer may be utilized to supplement and supplemented to fulfill the landscape screening requirements on the site of the parcel not fronting a street. The required screening, fence or wall, and landscaping shall be continuous on all sides of the property except for openings no larger than necessary for vehicular access. A post-development stormwater management plan shall be designed, constructed, and maintained as established in our City of Conyers Chapter 4, Title 12, Water Quality. The entire parking surface shall be encompassed with curb and gutter to direct stormwater, contain any loose aggregate, and to ensure vehicles remain on an appropriate surface. Parking and driving surfaces shall be structurally designed to accommodate heavy commercial vehicles with frequent turning movements. Portions of driveways within the public right-of-way shall be 6-inch thick, 4,000 PSI fiber reinforced concrete, and extend a minimum of 40 feet into the parking area. The parking surface shall be constructed to the following standards. A, the subgrade shall be compacted to 98% proctor density. B, the base course thickness shall be a minimum of 4 inches of graded aggregate base. C, the top course shall be spread and compacted uniformly across the parking surface. It shall be maintained to prevent erosion and rutting caused by vehicles and weather. The following top course materials may be used: asphalt millings, no less than 4 inches thick. Asphalt pavement, no less than 4 inches thick, or 4,000 PSI concrete, no less than 6 inches thick. Now, all structures, if proposed, shall comply with the architectural standards set forth in the City of Conyers Ordinance Section 87-86. A security camera system shall be installed and maintained to provide 24-hour surveillance. Trash receptacles shall be provided, distributed around the premises, and maintained daily by the owner or his/her designee to ensure the property is free from litter and debris at all times. Outdoor lighting shall be provided within the parking areas. Lighting shall comply with the requirements established in Section 8-7-86.1. Outdoor storage of any kind is strictly prohibited on the property. Auto repair of any kind is strictly prohibited on the property. And the property shall not contain any structures or permit any uses that would constitute a truck stop. Truck stops defined in Section 8-7-15. If you have any questions of me, I'm happy to answer them.
Scott, is there a limited to the number of tractor trailers that can park there?
No, sir. Just a minimum acreage requirement for someone to apply for the special use permit.
Okay. Also, you ever have a wood fence, those tend to degrade eventually, get unsightly and don't provide really the screening. Is that something the city would come and say, you need to repair this fence or this wood fence when it starts, falling down or rotting or?
Yes, sir. At any point, since the fence is required for screening and is a requirement of the use, the code enforcement will be able to enforce that requirement that if the fence is in disrepair or is not doing its job as required by the ordinance, they can enforce that portion of the ordinance. And the enforcement would be a notice of violation. If action is not taken within a given period, then followed up by an invitation to come see our judge.
Okay. Thank you.
Scott, if,
Yes.
I don't know if any properties like this exist in the city, but should an owner driver have let's say a 4-acre piece of property on his homestead, would he not be allowed to park his rig on his own property?
No, sir. In residential zoning in the city, heavy commercial vehicles such as tractor trailers are not permitted. Now we do have one such tractor trailer that has been permitted and has been there long before that ordinance for commercial vehicles was adopted.
I have a question and I don't know exactly how to ask it, but just knowing the size and weight of these vehicles, these 18-wheelers, 4-inch asphalt, that seems like it's not thick enough. I don't know But I know that when they run on the regular roads, sometimes the wear and tear is, holes and potholes and all of that. So is 4 inches enough?
That's a good question. And that's something that I asked our city engineer. He's the Public Works and Transportation Director. He's an engineer, Brian Fricks. And I also asked the former Public Works Director about this and to get some specs on that. And at first I thought the same thing. But as far as truck movement on a parking lot for low speed, 4 inches is adequate is what I'm told. The issue that they have on trucks this size or large trucks, even with or without a trailer, is the turning movements at low speeds. So the surface at 4 inches, would it be enough for a public street? No, ma'am, it wouldn't. And we do have public street standards that are greater than this, but this is a parking lot, and most of the parking lots in commercial districts are less than the 4-inch thick asphalt that you see or that's proposed. And we looked at some of the older shopping centers, their loading docks, to see how they're holding up, and they seem to be doing pretty well.
Okay.
Scott, I would like to ask the question, and just for your input, do you feel that 100 feet from a residential neighborhood is adequate? Because that's my main concern. I wouldn't want them to get too close to our residential neighborhoods. And, the coming into using the same access roads to get into a 5-acre lot on the way to a residential neighborhood. Could you increase that, or you feel that 100 feet is adequate from residential neighborhoods?
Ms. Goosley, that is a good question. 100 feet is a pretty standard buffer that we have found for separating industrial uses from residential uses. With any industrial use, especially if it's a distribution or manufacturing, we're going to have some externalities in terms of noise. Looking at our buffer requirements throughout the difference or throughout our ordinance between industrial and residential, it is 100. So the 100-foot no truck vehicle or no vehicle shall be parked within 100 feet of residential. That is consistent with our ordinance for buffers and transitional buffers. Do I feel it's enough? I don't know. In terms of realistic, I can't say that our neighbor 101 feet won't hear a truck. A lot depends on the topography. A lot depends on the amount of vegetation and trees between the residence and the parking surface. So we feel 100 feet is adequate, especially if there's a planted buffer to help filter that noise and obviously any light. Our light ordinance does require all external lighting to be down lighting and not shine onto adjacent properties or public right-of-ways. So when we look at a particular layout, any one that we get that comes before us is a special use permit. So at that point, if we feel that 100 feet is not enough due to topography or due to lack of vegetation, we could always make a recommendation with conditions to increase that buffer or to plant additional trees to help mitigate any externalities.
God, do the current noise ordinances, are they sufficient to cover anything with these parking lots, or should a certain decibel amount be included in this ordinance?
We do have a noise ordinance, and noise ordinances across the board can be tricky because the noise has to be a consistent noise at a certain decibel for a period of time. What a truck dieseling at 100+ feet away, would that trigger that noise ordinance violation? Maybe not. With the backup beeper, if the backup beeper on a truck stayed on for 30 minutes, yeah, that would trigger a potential noise ordinance violation and nuisance violation. As far as putting a decibel rating on this ordinance, I would say it's probably best to leave our noise ordinance the way it is. It is enforced by the Conyers Police Department. They have the equipment and they have the ability to respond 24 hours a day to take those noise complaint violations and also do the decibel ratings at property lines, at the complainant's house, so on and so forth.
Yeah, we'll tell that to the guy with the Mustang lives down the street from me.
Scott, I am concerned, and I don't know a lot about this, so let me say that up front. But you kept using the word adequate when you talked about the asphalt, and when you talked about the 100 feet from residential. Adequate versus a standard. Is there a standard that we use? Because adequate could be minimal.
So we have a standard for public streets, and that's the standard construction for public streets for asphalt thickness and type. This being a private standard for private property, like a parking lot of a shopping center, they don't have to use the public street standards. They can be as much as 2-inch thick asphalt. They could be as much as 10-inch thick asphalt. So that's a 4-inch thick asphalt as proposed is something for the private parking lot. Now, that owner could do more. He just can't do less than that 4-inch. I do believe that 4-inch asphalt would provide a surface that's not going to track out onto the road, that's going to provide a surface that's going to allow runoff as it's intended to go. If it ruts up in their own private lot, that's their own maintenance issue to worry about. As far as the 100 foot, again, that's a minimum, the 100 foot distance. And when or if we get a special use permit request, we would look at what's the nearest residence. Is the property clear, no vegetation at all? Is the property down in a hole or up on a hill? Because we know topography affects how noise travels. So we feel that the 100 foot as a base gives, you asked about your term adequate. We feel that the standard of 100 foot base minimum is consistent with the separation of residential and industrial and other parts of our ordinance and city.
Okay.
I'm not sure that if you can put a stipulation here, but if you could put a stipulation saying that when an application is presented, that although 100 feet is identified, you would have to take in consideration the noise levels for this 100 feet. And if the noise levels are high, then therefore the 100 feet would have to be increased. I'm not sure if you can modify it, but that was just a thought. Because one thing about this, a tractor trailer parking area is going to be open 24/7. There's not going to be any downtime.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's just a concern of residents, how close it is to a residential neighborhood.
I understand, and I share that same concern. I guess kind of the check and balance of that is there is that special use permit. So it does have to come before you guys. It has to go before the city council. So we'll have to look at that. We'll look at the size of the lot. If it's a 10-acre lot, then they may be able to get 300 trucks in there. 100 feet may not be adequate. So yes, ma'am, we'll certainly look at that. I did make a note on there on my ordinance here that you brought that up. That's something that we can certainly take a look at, but know that these lots can't pop up without going through the permitting process, without going through the special use permit process. So at that point, yes, ma'am, you guys as a body can make greater conditions placed on it, and the city council can place greater conditions on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just hope this great body is there when that opportunity presents itself. So that's the only thing, but thank you.
And there's not gonna be any downtime.
Yes, ma'am.
Scott, I have
Right.
a number of questions. Is there any way that you can possibly, I know trucks go 24/7. Is there any way to establish operating hours? Is the property going to be a manned kind of space or required to be locked at all times? I mean, are the people going to allow personal cars for the persons who have the tractor trailers on site? Is there a limit? I mean, I think you mentioned that there was a minimum size, but like you were mentioning before, up to 300. Is there any way we can kind of put a maximum capacity in one spot? You know, maybe access to just from major arterial roads only, so that it has to go to maybe smaller streets or aren't impacted like that.
And I'm writing these down. These are all very good questions. We did not look at hours of operation simply for the fact that we know trucks come and go at all times. If a driver's coming off the road for the weekend and he gets in at 2 o'clock in the morning and the gate's closed, what's the best thing for him or her to do if they're paying a lease fee or a membership fee for a lot? I don't want to sound like a cop out, but this is kind of a private business situation. Again, it is a special use permit, so this ordinance is just a minimum standards that they have to meet. Obviously, when an application comes before you, it is for a specific location. That specific location will be considered. You're certainly able to recommend those conditions, hours of operations. You brought up a point, your last point about access from arterials. No, ma'am, we did not look at where they could be accessed from. We did look at our zoning map at the industrial areas. And looking at our industrial areas already, yes, some of them are accessed off of a local or a local street, and that would be over here on Commerce Drive. There's some industrial over there. On Brett Drive, there's industrial over there. Could those develop, or some of those properties develop as tractor trailer parking areas? It's possible. Would those be more suitable for tractor trailer parking areas than, say, on Parker Road? Probably so, because they're intended to be that industrial area. Most of our industrial parks are not on our arterials or collectors. A lot of them do have local streets that are cul-de-sac, like Davis Drive, for example, that's off of Parker. So we didn't look at specifically stating they have to be accessed off of higher classification roads. Do they have to be manned? No, ma'am, our ordinance is not requiring them to be manned, but they do require to have the security, 24-hour security camera system that obviously has to be monitored, whether it's monitored via remote or if they allow access and the Conyers Police access to their monitoring system, that is up to them. We do require trash receptacles, and that they have to be monitored and cleaned daily so that it doesn't have an accumulation of trash and debris. We haven't looked at placing a limit on trailers. Again, looking at site specific. If someone comes in with 10 acres and 7 acres is floodplain, yeah, then that's something that we would recommend. Look at the ecological impact of that and say, no, you're not going to put 300. We'll put a limit that no more than X number can be parked here at any given time. That might be something we look at on a case-by-case basis. I don't know if I got all your questions. I know they were very good questions. And it's some things that we did not think about. And there's reasons why we did not try to follow up or go down that research rabbit hole.
Is there a need for it? Is that the reason why this is coming up?
So yes, ma'am, there is a need. We have in the last, well, I can say it says 2019. 2019, I know we had 3 different requests. And again, it was a special use permit required, but there was no standards associated with it. So if someone would have applied in 2019 and it was what we thought would be in a good fit, we would have made some of these standards a condition of approval. 2020 was an odd year, but then again in 2021, we had requests for tractor trailer parking. This year, yes, ma'am, we've had 2 people just in 2022 inquire about establishing a truck parking area. With development going on in the city of Conyers, with development going on in Rockdale County, we are very much a distribution hub. Comparably so, land is cheaper than inside the perimeter. We have a workforce that supports distribution and warehousing, and we have a large industry footprint in the East Metro, much like DeKalb, much like Lithonia Industrial Boulevard. We do have a lot of owner operators and a lot of independent contractors that have trouble finding places to park. We in planning are working through code enforcement and through the police department with our shopping center managers on tractor trailers parking. You go into a Walmart parking lot, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at 12 a.m., 1 a.m. I'm not awake at those times, but I understand that there is at any given time, 3 to 4 to 5, sometimes even 10 tractor trailers parked there because they have nowhere else to park. These types of lots give them a place to park. So that's what we're facing. I know code enforcement specifically has been cracking down on tractor trailers being parked in residential neighborhoods. Some of them may be parked in some of the neighborhoods that you live in. That is an issue they face daily. And this, again, gives them some place to park.
Thank you.
So Scott, based on her questions, I want to make sure I'm understanding this. This is a generic ordinance change, and all of the concerns that we have today can be addressed with specificity when someone come up to bring a specific case to us where they want to put one of these
yes, ma'am.
Places in. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And so next month, I have received an application for a special use permit for a tractor trailer parking lot. This ordinance did not originate because of that, but they have come to the city. They've been poking around, asking for several months about opening a tractor trailer lot. And at our city council retreat, this is something we discussed, and our city council said, yes, we want our staff to start working on that. Well, with this individual who will come before you next month, that helped precipitate us getting this before you quicker than we anticipated in 2022. So yes, ma'am, Ms. Bowie, any application that comes before you guys will be looked at on its own merit for its own location. And as special use permit, it can expire if the use ceases to operate for 6 months or longer, It cannot be reestablished unless it goes back through the special use permit process. But this just gives us a basis that we can hand people that say, if you're going to do this type of business in the city of Conyers, these are the minimums you have to meet. And because it's a special use, additional conditions may apply.
Okay. Mhm. Okay.
Well, is it possible that this can be tweaked a little bit
You're
prior to the decision being made?
Yes, ma'am. So you're more than welcome to make a recommendation on changes to this ordinance in form of a motion. This item does go before the planning commission, or excuse me, before the city council for their consideration next week on the 16th. So any recommendations that this body makes, either to approve as written, approve with changes, to deny, your recommendation is always forwarded to the city council.
Scott,
Yes,
one
sir.
small question. Was any consideration given to hazardous materials that the tractor trailers may be carrying and length of time they can stand there?
No, sir. And we know that the Georgia Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Transportation, they have their own limitations on hazardous material and hazmat certifications, where they can be stored, where they can be parked. I don't know all of those. That's like trying to learn American with Disabilities requirements. So that's one of those situations that no, sir, we didn't want to try to address that with these supplemental standards.
Okay.
Are there any more questions? Okay. Anybody signed up to speak?
No, sir, the city of Conyers did not receive any inquiries to speak from the public. I'm not sure if Rockdale County received those on our behalf. And Kiwanis is saying no.
All right. Being said, we'll close the public portion, and now we're in the discussion and/or motion.
Mr. Chairman, if I don't hear any discussion, I would like to make a motion for approval of ordinance 1283, an ordinance to amend city ordinance section 8792, supplemental use standard to provide supplemental use standards for tractor trailer parking areas. Do I need to read the whole thing?
No.
Okay.
So we got a
That's my
motion to approve, and we second by Stephen.
Second, yes.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Go ahead. Discussion.
I agree with approving it, but I agree approving it with it being tweaked. So I don't know if that's a separate, so I just let this vote go out.
No. So Ms. Gooseby, no, ma'am. Now's the time for discussion. If you want to bring up any discussion items, anything that you would like to think about and include, there is that motion on the table. The second, you can discuss it. And if Tom wants to amend his motion, he may certainly do so. And if Stephen agrees with that, he may certainly continue his second. But no, ma'am, now is the time to discuss it. If you've got concerns, please let us know. Let's discuss those now.
Tina, is there a certain thing you would like to add as a condition?
Yes, I thought it was great when she said limit the number of trucks. They can fit in so many trucks into a parking, but there should be a limit of 200 limits, or if it's 100 per, I'm not sure. It's 50 trucks per acre. And it's just some type of limit to the number of trucks that can have a membership at a particular location, because he can give memberships out for 300, but they can't accommodate the 300. So then I don't want to create a problem trying to solve a problem. And
Y'all address the number of trucks that can come into a lot?
I'm sorry, sir.
did y'all address the number of trucks that could be parked at a certain time?
No, sir.
Right now, we have 300. I mean, no, we don't have anything.
It's
You proposing a number, Tina?
if if you could say something like, if you got 200 parking spaces, you should have no more than 300 memberships, in hopes that 2/3 of it should be able to park at one time, and 1/3 should probably in limbo. But if you got at least a ratio of parking spaces to memberships, if that could be considered.
So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know how many trucks can park on an acre, but Ms. Goolsby had a comment about a number per acre. For enforcement capabilities, that's easier for us to go out and see. We know they've got 10 acres and there's a maximum number per acre, then that's easy for the enforcement side versus knowing how many subscription memberships
Right,
that
yeah.
are sold. So
Yeah.
again, I don't know how many per acre can fit comfortably without creating an issue. I think a lot has to depend on the specific site. And it may be, an acre is 43,560 square feet. I don't know if a maximum of 50 per acre is adequate. These are things that I know I didn't particularly look at when looking at this ordinance, as I know most places will want to put as many as they can on it in order to make it financially feasible for them to do the site improvements that we are requiring.
That's my concern, Scott. They're going to make it as profitable as they can for them. And it's just, you got to consider, I don't want to create a problem, as I say, by trying to solve a problem, because there's a construction site where on Old Covington Highway, a warehouse was approved. And at the time I approved the warehouse and they'll post to the site, but there's over 60 doors to that particular warehouse. And imagine if 60 doors to one warehouse. If there's 60 trucks every hour trying to get out to Old Covington Highway that's making the delivery. We didn't think about that at the time, the number of doors per warehouse, but that's what they put in, 60 doors. That's quite a bit to a 2-lane highway.
Right.
It's something I think should be addressed before this is approved.
I think the issue, agree with perhaps putting a limit. The issue is not knowing how many trucks fit on an acre. I mean, what do we designate as the limit? That's the problem.
Could we roughly say an acre is, I would say 25 trucks per acre.
That's low. I used to drive.
I kind of live on an acre and imagine 25 tractor trailers on this particular acre.
Leslie, you have some experience with that?
I do. I used to drive horses, so I was in those areas sleeping often. And if you just have ever been on the highways and go in the backs of some of the, the truck stop areas, you will see that they're not even close to an acre and they're putting 20, 25 in there. It comes down to more the matter of being able to back in and park and being able to get out. That's your limiting factor, is really the length, because they're not that wide. I mean, they're wider than a car, but they're not that wide. The limiting factor is the length of them, and then the weight of them at 65,000 pounds. So, so that's more your limiting factors on that. Now, I live on 10 acres, and I can tell you, my front field is 250 by 250. So 125 buffer is about one side of that. That's pretty good. Yeah, I think it would probably reasonably, and I don't mean to, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I think it more reasonably would probably be closer to 40. And then, the thing is that because we have so much truck travel now, which we do, Conyers has a ton of truck travel, they park everywhere. On the north side, they're in the only shopping plaza that's there, basically, not the Publix, the older one. There'll be 6, 7 of them in there,
Yeah.
so.
But we don't want to bring them into the neighborhood. That's my only concern, Leslie. I just,
Neighborhood either, but if they're based on industrial, near industrial, and then they have to come up individually every time,
Mhm.
then it gives you the chance to say, on this side, we're asking that your buffer be 200 feet for this individual, because it's special use. It's not like once these are written, like they said, these are min standards. So you can go above your min, you just can't go below your min. So you could even require that, if you felt like they wanted to put an entrance on a road that wasn't going to work, you could even ask that entrance be changed to a different road if that's available.
Well, that's what a special use permit would take care of. Is that not true? Scott?
That's my understanding.
Yes. Especially use permit would, but looking at while the discussion was going on, just looking at, in this Google,
Uh-huh.
a truck is 53 foot long with a trailer.
Right.
8.5 feet wide. They need about 12 feet with a parking area. So yes, everything that I'm finding is between 40 and 50 trucks and trailers on a 1 acre lot.
Okay. Well, can we use 40? Could I propose using 40 per acre lot?
You're certainly welcome to make that as a recommendation, is to
That's a recommendation.
place a limit, a sliding scale limit. I mean, it's going to
Exactly.
be based on the acreage. So, quick math. If you've got a minimum of 5 acres,
200.
you get 200 total trucks.
Mhm.
And that's again trucks and trailers.
Yes.
It might take some of us all day to count 200 on a 5 acre lot, but that's easier for us to
At
enforce.
least we have a starting point. We have a
Yes, ma'am.
starting point. So,
Right.
so I feel more comfortable with it.
Right. Something that says how many per acre, because,
But-
it is human nature to what you can out of your livelihood. So,
Hey, girl.
Well, I think that, if we're talking about 200 tractor trailers, of course, if they're parking there, they're going to also need personal parking too. So if you're talking about 200 trucks, you may be talking about 200 cars.
Yeah.
That's a thought.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Get it under.
But if they have membership, I'm not sure if this work, but they have membership if you have a designated, but you can't put your personal car in your membership slot if you're going out for a whole week, but the membership slot got to be open at all times. I just wonder I don't know how they would work it.
I would think so if they were getting, if they were trying to optimize those slots being rented,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, because some rig drivers only drive at night, some only drive during the day, some are gone for 3 days, some are going cross country, and that's 10 days. So, you're gonna maximize those slots. So on the individual stuff, if it's has to come in front every time, then the question can be, what happens to the vehicles that are brought in to bring people?
Are there any case studies of other jurisdictions that may have that, and how has it worked? And
Yeah, I don't know.
do they have any maximum or minimum capacities that we can look at?
So that is a good question. I've looked at a small scale. I didn't do a broad nationwide search, I looked in just around Metro Atlanta. Stonecrest, Lithonia, they don't set a minimum or maximum. So their requirement is that if they meet the minimum standards, then they could park as many as they want there. I know there's one particular lot that's in the heavy industrial area in Lithonia, right across from a asphalt manufacturing plant that E.R. Snell owns, and it's their big yard that they do all their equipment on, store their equipment, and do repair. This yard is across the street. It's roughly 3 acres, and the operator, he's simply got camera system up. It's a chain link fence, 8 or 10 foot tall with barbed wire around it. That's not the look that we'll want, but they park as many trucks as they can get in there. If someone has paid their fee and they get their truck in, or they get in or get there and they can't get their truck in, they can't park there. They have to go somewhere else. So that's not something that those agencies regulate. The industry, that's the industry regulated in those jurisdictions. I did look at some more rural counties and cities, and they're just getting to the surface of, do we want to allow this? We know this happening in certain areas, but is it something that they want to legitimize and allow? Some of them are not doing that. I know Cobb County, I looked at Cobb County a number of years ago, because this is something that's been on our radar, especially through Atlanta Regional Commission, for a number of years. And when I looked at Cobb County, they restricted them to their industrial areas only, but they didn't limit their size. They didn't limit or restrict the number of vehicles that could be parked there or the type of vehicles that can be parked there. That may have changed. Again, that was probably around 2017 when I looked at Cobb County.
That's a great idea. The industrial, maybe at least limited to a particular industrial area.
And what I found out I didn't know, I was just looking at that. There's actually have one here in Conyers, I guess Rockdale County, 2506 Flat Shoals Road. There's available daily parking 22, monthly 150, truck and trailer. Are you familiar with that? Store my truck parking and storage?
No, sir. I'm not familiar with that. I'm not sure.
2506 Flat Shoals Road. So I wasn't aware that was here.
I was not either. That may be a new lot that individuals taking advantage of Rockdale County's ordinance for tractor trailer parking.
And in this ordinance, because I can't find it right at the moment,
Yes,
it was limited to industrial, right? Light
yes, ma'am. It's only permitted in industrial after a special use permit.
Right. So there's going to be some abutting possibly to residential for sure, but not overwhelmingly if it's kept in the industrial areas.
That's correct. Now, we do have industrial areas in the city that do abut residential zoning districts. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that doesn't happen, but again, the special use permit process and the ability to put additional conditions on that hopefully would give us enough ability to limit any externalities that may occur.
I'm in agreement that the only, that the minimals are fine in putting maybe a recommendation for how many per acre is probably reasonable to do.
Like a 40 per acre maximum.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I think that's good. And I think we're kind of overthinking it because probably it's just going to be a tractor trailer lot instead of a tractor trailer and, your individual car lot. Probably he's going to make the most profit, and he may not have memberships. He could just say, first come, first serve. So, after I fill up to 200, You
Right.
know, yeah.
I am looking at the one in Conyers, and they do have trucks and cars parked there. Just
Oh, they do? Okay. So, but I think it's, you know, we should put a limit, at least a limit on the number of tractor trailers.
right.
Right.
Well, if you put a limit on it, again, you can either make a recommendation to amend the text amendment as proposed, or you can look at that as a standard for each special use permit. But I'm going to say this, if you're going to put a limit at 40 per acre, it shouldn't matter if it's cars or trucks. That should apply across the board.
I think we should let the special use permit process handle that. Is anybody in agreement on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think it would be sufficient enough to cover any contingencies that may occur, depending upon locale, et cetera, as to how many trucks could be approved for a certain location. And that could be applied during the special use permit process.
How can I say this, Tom? I respect your idea. I think that's a good idea, but I just want it to be something that is addressed per special use permit, the number of cars per special use permit, per application, that is one thing that is addressed.
Well, we could make that recommendation on each individual special use permit. If they come in and we would say during the permit process, you can only have 40 per acre, then that's what would be written into the special use permit. And that should cover any conditions, would it not, Tina?
I agree.
Okay. So I can leave my motion as is.
Yes, sir.
Scott, it really is hard because depending on like the size of the site and like you were talking about the topography of the site as well, it's really hard to kind of determine how many cars and you know, how many cars can fit on that lot of trucks to fit on line. If you're saying that we have to limit it to 40 cars and trucks, you know, of course, the cars being almost half the size of a truck.
I think we'll have to look at every one individually.
A lot of unknowns
as they approach.
Mhm.
All right. So go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, did you have something to say?
No, I did.
Okay. Want to make sure everybody's heard. So we have a motion on the table and decided to look at the number of trucks, special use permit. So we're going to have the motion as stands, and we have a motion and a second. So I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Right. Motion passes.
And just for everyone's comfort, when we present this to City Council next week, I will let the council know that there was a lengthy discussion had about the distance requirement and also about the number of potential trucks parking at a location. So the council will understand that those are concerns that the Planning Commission has, and that the Planning Commission has decided to recommend approval of the ordinance as written, but to understand that each special use permit is weighed on its own merit, but that at that point, the Planning Commission may be looking at setting a maximum number of vehicles parked on a lot.
Yes.
I think that's good.
Put up very well. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Moving on to item C2, case 4/2022, ordinance 1284, an ordinance to amend chapter 5 of Title 8 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Conyers, Georgia, so as to amend section 8/520, oversized signs, to amend the requirements for oversized signs, to clarify the distance requirement for oversized signs, and the applicant is City of Conyers. Nathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a mouthful. So oversized signs or billboards are only allowed to be placed along the interstate highway and defined as ground signs with a sign face of more than 300 square feet. There are 8 specific criteria restricting oversized signs. One of those is states that oversized signs shall not be placed within 500 feet in any direction of a residential zoning district, church, school, park, or cemetery. Staff is proposing amendment to change that item to read oversized signs shall not be placed within 500 feet of a residential zoning district, church, school, park, or cemetery on the same side of the interstate highway. So for example, if a property in the city wanted to install a billboard and it is interstate fronting, but across the interstate, which is the interstate itself, 6 lanes divided with lights, and you've got Irish Drive and Dogwood Drive, so that's considerable distance away. But as the crow flies, you may have property that's in the county that is zoned residential, or you may have property in the county that has a cemetery on it. That would restrict the placement of that sign. Staff looked at this, and again, as we go through ordinances and see what needs to be updated, what is still something that has merit to it, we looked at this and said, well, you have an interstate that has traffic driving on it 24 hours a day. That has impacts to surrounding areas, abutting properties. Does it have more or less of impact than a billboard? And we believe it has a much less impact than a billboard. So that was one of the things we looked at and said, does this make sense? And no, it wouldn't. But know that if there's residential property or a park or church or cemetery within that 500 feet of a proposed location of a billboard on the same side, then the ordinance would still apply and it would prohibit that billboard's placement. Any questions?
So in a sense, this is going to allow more billboards.
So we looked at that. Mr. Flanagan and I looked at that, looked at the properties available and what could potentially a billboard could locate, because there still is distance requirements from other billboards. So there is still those 8 criteria. We believe that 1, and there may be 2 potential locations where another billboard could be placed on I-20.
Okay.
God, are there any current billboards that are not on I-20 within the city?
Yes, sir. We do have a few billboards in the city that are non-conforming.
So how would this apply to them?
If they were to blow over in a storm, then they could not be put back in those locations.
Okay, good to
Are
know.
you wishing that, Scott? Or I'm not saying that. Like just okay.
Having said that, there will be an investigation.
Probably so.
So they won't have to be changed unless they're removed for some
Yes,
reason.
correct. So and I should clarify that was ill-spoken of me. Act of God, that those would be allowed to be reconstructed. Unfortunately, they could not be enlarged or change their format to say a digital multi-message. But if it's a static message sign and a windstorm knocked it over, it could be put back. But if someone took it down willingly, it could not be reestablished.
One other small question regarding the current ordinance. Has the 0.3 foot candle brightness feature been checked or otherwise made sure that the lighted billboards are maintaining that foot candle?
So that is a requirement that all the multi-message, the digital multi-message billboards, that is a requirement that they have. All of them have the photometric that sits off. If you look at some of those billboards as you drive by them, they've got a small metal arm that goes out, and they've got a, for the lack of a better term, a light meter. I don't know what a light meter is called technically, but they have that sits off out in front that measures the foot candles. And it's almost like a photocell that the foot candles can increase when the sun is bright, and the foot candles of the sun decrease like a dimmer switch when it's ambient or the surrounding light is lessened.
So
So
they're self-adjusting.
yes, sir, they are self-adjusting. All
did
of them,
not know that.
when we permit those, and I'm sure Rockdale's the same way, when they submit that paperwork, we get information regarding those self-adjusting systems, and also that in the event of a malfunction, that the screen goes black. It can't just be a bright white screen that is blinding to motorists and adjacent property owners. And the technology of those has increased significantly in the last 5 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody signed up to speak?
No, sir, not with the city of Conyers, and I'm not sure if anyone signed up to speak with Rockdale County. And Kiwanis is saying no.
Okay, all right, that being said, we're now in the public portion. I mean, the public portion is now closed, and we're now in the board portion. Any comments, discussion, motions?
Mr. Chairman, I say that we approve this as written. Do I need to read the whole thing?
No, you don't have to.
Okay, with the amendments that he
Okay.
proposed.
You can say case for 2022 ordinance 1284. So,
Yes, case, yeah, okay. Thank you.
all right, you're welcome.
What he
Okay,
said.
right, okay. Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right. Who seconded? I didn't see.
Tamikia.
Tamika, okay. All right, Tamika. All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, not opposed. Okay. All right, moving on to Rockdale County, item R1, preliminary plat 1985, Old Covington Highway et al. Preliminary plat case number 2021-0114. It's a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 316 lot residential subdivision that includes townhomes and detached units, which includes a number of parcels, which I won't read all the parcel numbers. The size is 50.45 acres. The applicant is Planners and Engineering Collaborative Plus. And this is a public hearing, and one vote is required on the preliminary plat. Right.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Chairman, fellow board members. Preliminary item R1, preliminary plat 1985 Old Covington. Again, is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 316 lot residential subdivision that's multi-residential with townhomes and single family detached. Again, there are 8 different parcels. The size is 50.45 acres. Applicant is Planners and Engineering Collaborative. This required one public hearing by the Planning Commission, and one vote will be required for the preliminary plat approval. In summary, the proposed subdivision, again, is on Old Covington and will contain no more than 249 townhome units and permitted accessory uses. This was rezoned to mixed residential use in 2021, which was rezoning case 2021-15. Also, there was a future land use category amendment to high density residential in 2021, which was future land use case 2021-09. Okay, here are a couple of ones, just a side map showing the red pin indicates the location along Old Covington in the proximity to our 958 Millstead Avenue location. And to the right, we have an aerial with the various parcels, just give you another perspective of the project area. And here again is another site plan of the plat, again showing, again along Old Covington, the layout of both the single family as well as the townhome structures. All right, we just kind of zoomed in on the site data to give you an idea again of the some of the criteria. Again, total 246 townhomes, 70 single-family homes is for a total of 316. Density is 6.2. Open space is 5 acres. And you see the respective setback and the other requirements. Recommendation from staff is that the preliminary plat be approved as the various infrastructure departments, the fire marshal, planning and development, the DOT, Rockdale Water, as well as stormwater, all reviewed this preliminary plat, provided comments, and they also approved it as well. That concludes the staff presentation for the preliminary plat. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I have. You have the idea of how many residential units the county has approved off of Old Covington Highway between Dogwood Drive and Keys Mill? There seems to be a lot of them, and I don't know. I was curious how many residential units we have. I don't know if you would know that off the top of your head.
At this particular time, I can get that to you, though. I can follow up with you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. It just seems like a lot of them. I like that number. If you could, thank you. And has the county acquired the right of way from these developments in order to perform traffic improvements?
Not at this particular point. No, right now it's just at the plat stage. So no, not at this point. That's something that will be forthcoming.
Okay. So that is not something that's really considered with the preliminary plat.
Kalanis, I have a question. I
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
make sure that I understand this. There's a letter in this packet that that came to this group from the county commissioners from September of 2021, saying that they approved it with conditions. So has this come before this committee before and went to the commissioners, and then they approved it with these conditions, and it's coming back because they met the conditions?
That was the rezoning and the future land use amendment that I mentioned earlier, Ms. Bowie, where the planning commission approved it, made a recommendation for the future land use amendment as well as the rezoning. Then the board of commissioners then approved it with the conditions from the rezoning. So now it's a preliminary plat. This is the next step.
This is okay. That's what was throwing me. Okay.
I
Yes,
had a
ma'am.
question. Is this the MRU?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this is the mixed residential because they have both townhomes as well as single family detached homes.
Is this not, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was one that came to us, and I believe this is the one that we did not approve the rezoning because we were asked to approve this zoning when the MRU category did not even exist or was not even voted on by the Board of Commissioners. So this planning commission didn't. This is just as a history because we're just voting on the preliminary plat approval, but I just wanted to make clear that we did not vote to approve this because it was a category that didn't exist technically in the county. And we felt it was inappropriate at the time to vote to approve something with a category that didn't exist. So I just wanted to make that comment. And that's why we never approved it, because there wasn't an MRU that was approved at the time.
Okay.
Is that your recollection?
It was this one or another project. I do remember that issue. There was a couple of, as you recall, planning commission hearings last year that got delayed for various reasons. And the items, that particular item that you mentioned may not have actually preceded the actual rezoning. So if it was not this particular project, there was one in particular. I'm not sure if it was this one or another, but I do remember that issue came up of the MRU not being official at the time.
I believe it was, and just further.
It may have been this one, or there was a Salem and Fairview and the Salem Road corridor as well that had a mixed residential development as well. So it could have been that one or this one. So
okay. Just wanted to make that point. That being said, that's not really pertinent to actually the vote on this preliminary plat. And I just
But it
want,
does speak to my question, Steve, because that's what I was wondering. I wasn't on the committee in September. And so that was why I was asking that question.
I believe this is one, because I saw the paper, this is the one, saw the paperwork. That's what happened with this, and that's why we did not vote on it,
Okay.
because there was no zoning category.
So if there was no zoning for this, when did that take place?
There was a proposed zoning of MRU that we were voting on, but the Board of Commissioners, or I'm not sure if it came up then, the Board of Commissioners had not approved the zoning category, and we were asked to approve this zoning when this category legally didn't exist.
Okay.
And that was my concern. Just bringing that up.
Okay.
I don't know if that
but it is an actual
it is
category now. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm not arguing that. It is
Right.
The Board of Commissioners chose to approve it, and that would have been the time after that, to vote on this. But we didn't, but it was approved afterward. If that answers your question.
Yes, that's what was confusing me. Yes. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Kalani's, something that I've brought up just about every time we've had one of these developments to be approved, be it a plat or be it some other format, is the approvals from RWR. You mentioned just a moment ago that they had signed off on it. Well, there's nothing in the packet that shows that information. I have requested in the past that a specific letter from RWR that is specifically pointing to a particular development that states there are enough sewer taps or there is enough water, et cetera, to allow this development to move forward. I've yet to see RWR respond to that request. Have you presented that to them and under any pretense?
That's something I will follow up and see if we can get that to you. But I think you're right. We had a similar discussion first part of the year, maybe late last year, about what proof or some sort of something to, I guess, show evidence, confirm that the various infrastructure departments have agreed to it. And I think we mentioned that, in order for this to come forward, those various departments have to sign off and approve it before we can actually then go forward with it to you all, the Planning Commission board. But if you feel more comfortable having some sort of letter, we can check with them to see if that's possible.
Yes, just some sort of letter of confirmation that this development specifically has been reviewed and the taps and water meters are approved based upon the current conditions that RWR has. That's all I'm looking for.
So now I'm not sure if they go into the detail of the water meters that, again, when they review the plat, those are some of the things that they wouldn't sign off on it if that was not the case, but I'll check though. I'll see what they can do. Something to make you feel more comfortable.
I'd like some in writing, that's all.
Right. All right, any other questions? You have anybody signed up to speak?
No, Mr. Chairman, no one signed up to speak either for or against this particular preliminary plat item.
Okay, all right. That being said, we're now in board discussion. The discussion motions.
I'm asked for a little bit, someone to educate me a little bit here. How far down the line do they incorporate the recommendations for improving, as they had here, the traffic requirements, such as lining the roads up? How far down the line is that? Because I think it was just said that we're just in the preliminary plat, and this is not the time and the place. Do you do halfway through construction, after construction? When is that put in place, the recommendations for improving the roads and putting the access roads to get to the subdivision? When does that take place?
You must be referring to the LDP phase where they have actual engineered design plans. That will come next, but so I think you're referring to that. And if you go back to the, we didn't have on these slides, but during the rezoning phase last year, we probably put that in some of our conditions that during the LDP phase, requirements such as what you mentioned from our DOT would be required at the LDP phase.
Okay, so is that prior to construction, during
Oh,
construction?
yes, no, yeah, those are the engineered plans that they use. It was way before construction. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Has there been any discussion on the right of way?
Which aspect of the right of way are you referring to, Mr. Chairman?
For the development?
The right of way for
Utilities or?
again, when the engineered plans during the LDP phase, some of those more defined items will be addressed at that point.
Okay. Is there a donation of the right of way along Old Covington Highway? Do you know?
I can answer that. That's something I can get back to you. I don't have that information at this time.
Okay. You see, a lot of these things I'm asking is done at the later stages.
Definitely, it'll be part of the LDP,
Right,
the
the land
engineered plan
service
phase.
permit.
Yeah, it'll
Okay.
be way before construction and way before building permits and that kind of thing. But that's something I can check and get back to you on.
All right.
But it is a part of the process. It has to be done, but it may not be done at
Right.
this particular preliminary plat phase.
Sure. Okay. All right. Any other discussion, motions?
Chairman, I'd like to move for approval of the preliminary plat case number 2021-0114, 1985 Old Covington Highway, southeast of Tall, Conyers, Georgia 30013.
Okay. Motion to approve. Is there a second?
A second.
Second. Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Okay, we report City of Conyers none, Rockdale County none. The Board of Commissioners will hold the zoning public hearing for the county items in person at 6 p.m. on Thursday, May 26th at 901 Main Street in the Assembly Hall. And when is the City of Conyers meeting?
City of Conyers meets on the 16th at 6 p.m. at City Hall.
Okay, all right, thank you. The next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting will be on April 14th. It's a Thursday at 6 p.m. And this one will be in person in the Assembly Hall. With that being said, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn, Gwendolyn,
Second.
second by Stephen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Assume none opposed. None opposed. Motion carries. We are adjourned. We'll see you all next month. In
Aye.
person.
All right.
Good night.
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 Right.
All right.
Okay.